Have you thought about what you're going to be doing this off season when it comes to your nutrition or your training or just goals in general? If not, stick around, let's dive into this video and just talk about some things that you can maybe think about doing and implementing and planning just to make your off season the most successful that it's ever been yet. Chaz here from Elevate Coaching. If you haven't seen things on the channel, a lot of stuff that we talk about is we talk about cycling nutrition, we talk about training, we talk about all things racing oriented, things like that. Anyways, for me personally, I'm currently in my downtime in my off season, enjoying a break. Like I said earlier this year, spent 12 weeks racing in Europe, and then most recently we had the Maryland Cycling Classic that we just finished up, and everything has been awesome. But now it's time to like decompress, relax. But because of that, it's also a good time to start thinking about what you're going to be doing this off season. And I think the off season is actually a really good time to work on things such as your nutrition, which is something I want to dive into. Something else you need to work on is actually thinking about what you're going to be doing next year and what your goals are. And when you figure out what those are, then you can actually implement a training plan that is going to go best for that. So the first thing, let's go back and let's cover nutrition and talk about what you can do this off season to really get that solidified and nailed in, because it's going to be perfect time to do it, to do some trial and error on things, because I mean, now's the time where you're just kind of riding and getting in base miles, and it's a good time to practice that, because if you do that in the middle of the season, that could throw off your whole season. So let's dive into nutrition. Now as cyclists, we're always fine-tuning our nutrition, whether it's on the bike nutrition, whether it's pre-post nutrition, or it even might be just your simple overall diet is something that you're trying to improve. And like I said, this is a good time to do that, because you can take that and you can start implementing changes into it and see how they affect you in your training and in your every day-to-day life. The other thing is, if you're trying to lose weight during the off season, now is a good time to start looking at your calories in versus your calories out and setting some limits, but not hard limits. And because the big thing is, you want to do that during the off season, because when you're in season, you need to maximize every calorie you take in to go towards adaptations. And during the off season, with less intensity, more of the zone 2 training, things of that nature, you can actually afford to be a little bit out of a deficit without actually slowing down your progress in your training. So you can work on calorie consumption in versus out. The other thing to work on would be on the bike nutrition. Maybe you want to switch your nutrition up, try something new, different brand, whatever it is. You can do all of that. Then the other thing you can look at doing on the bike is you can try implementing more grams of carbs per hour, maybe less grams of carbs per hour, things of that nature too. Like I said in other videos and things like that, when I race at 120 grams an hour. So maybe during the off season, you can just try, trying to actually take in that many carbs on a ride per hour to see what happens, things of that nature. And the last thing about nutrition is your pre and post nutrition. For me, it's taken me a little bit to find what really works best for me when it comes to fueling for a ride. And that's just something I kind of played around with, and I found what works, and I try to stick to that now. Even when I'm on the road, it's an easy breakfast meal to actually do and get in before all my rides. And the same thing with post. I can work on my recovery methods and supplements and things like that, of what am I actually going to use, which is hindering me and which is actually helping me. So there's some nutrition tips for that. If you guys love this video so far, hey, I'd love for you guys to subscribe and just kind of leave a comment on what's going on. Now let's move into goals. Talking about, what is your vision for your 2024 season? What is your goals set on? Are you racing? Are you just riding for fun? Are you doing group rides? Like, what is actually happening? You need to have goals in mind. So if you're a crit racer, start thinking about what events are you going to do? The good thing about crit racing in America is a lot of the races happen around the same time. So you can kind of bet on that race happening during that time frame. An example would be Intelligentsia Cup. It's always kind of in that July range. Same thing for Dairyland, it's kind of in that June range. Tulsa Tough is in June, things like that. So when you know when your events are, that will give you a better idea of, when it's going to happen and how you can start training for that. But then you got to think about your goal. Say it's a crit race. What's your goal for these crit races? Is it to upgrade? Is it to hang on in the field? Is it just to rack up wins? Is it just to go out and have fun and enjoyment? Also, when you think about that, you know, what are your, if it's not racing and you're just coming out for fun, and say you're gonna do fondos or you're just gonna do group rides, like, why are you training? Are you training to have fun on the weekends with your fellow friends, or are you training to get better at something? So think about those things. And that nutrition goal can also fall into that category. So, you know, if you want to work on nutrition, what's your goal for that? What are your thoughts on that? Those are just some things to think about. And once you get those in place, then you can move on to the last thing that I think will really set up your season for success. So you got goals in place. Now you get to actually sit down and plan and implement how you're going to achieve those goals, how you're going to achieve those objectives. Off season, obviously there's kind of a building phase to it, and really it's kind of just very traditional in how you kind of handle it, right? When you start the off season, you start with your basic zone 2, some tempo work, maybe, you know, depending on what your goals are, you're implementing cadence work, maybe you're even going to the gym and you're doing some strength work, things like that, to just kind of help and aid things on the bike. You know, maybe as the off season starts to progress a little bit, you know, you start getting into more sweet spot and hitting on the VO2 max here and there to keep that kind of up to date and fresh. And then when you start to get into January, February, now you start ramping things up for your actual season. But I think the biggest thing is, when it comes to the off season, is people don't realize that is the time that you set the foundation for your whole year. If you have a strong foundation during that time, then your actual in-season time will go really well. And I'm not just talking go out and ride base miles to make a foundation. It's more of what are the skills and drills and just workouts that you're going to do during this time, in this off-season time, that will actually be beneficial and help you during your season. Those are things to think about. A lot of things that I'm doing personally is I will be doing a little bit of strength maintenance. I will be doing, obviously, a lot of zone 2 base rides. I will be doing some tempo work. There will be high cadence, low cadence work implemented in throughout all my rides as well. And obviously we're going to hit on some VO2 max here and there just to keep that energy system kind of firing and not declining a whole lot. And then I'm also going to be using that time to dial in nutrition, make sure I come into season in a good spot overall. That's pretty much all this in a nutshell. If you can sit down and think about those 3 things and work through those 3 things, whether you're new or you've been doing this for years, that will be the best key to success for 2024. And it all starts right now in October. So give that a shot. Hey, let me know in the comments how this worked out for you, or what you do for your season every year when you sit down and start planning, things you work on, things of that nature. Love to hear those things. As always, keep riding, training hard, and I'll see you guys on the next video.